Okay, question 8. So, straight away we should see that we've got a hypothesis test. Let's quickly read through. Firstly, we're told it must show detailed reasoning. Every one of those 7 marks is going to come from a specific step and stage of this hypothesis test, so leave nothing to chance and leave nothing out. Mr. Evans is standing for re-election in a local council. At the last election, 49% of voters voted for Mr. Evans, but it is thought that the level of support for Mr. Evans may have changed. A random sample of 38 voters are asked about their voting intentions, and 13 say they intend to vote for Mr. Evans. Carry out an appropriate hypothesis test at the 5% level to investigate whether or not the level of support for Mr. Evans has changed. Okay, let's look for some clues in the question. Alright, so we have a probability here. At the last election, 49% of voters voted for Mr. Evans. Alright, it's thought that the level of support may have changed. Alright, no indication whether it's changed to an improved level of support or whether it's changed to a reduced level of support. Okay, that's going to be important. Because of that, I know I'm going to be doing a two-tailed test. I'm checking for change in any direction rather than a specific direction. A random sample of 38 voters, there's my value of n, are asked about their voting intentions, and 13 say they intend to vote for Mr. Evans. So that will be my test statistic. Carry out the appropriate hypothesis test at the 5% level of significance, whether or not the level of support for Mr. Evans has changed. All right, so once again, that phrase changed without any indication of an improvement or a decrease or any directional wording means that I'm going to be doing a two-tailed test. Let's get things started. Hypothesis H0. Everything is the same, everything is normal. The proportion of people who would vote for him remains the same as last year, 0.49. The alternate hypothesis, P is not equal to 0.49. This may be improved, this may be decreased, we don't know, but that's what we're looking for. Okay, at this stage, let's be extremely careful to say exactly what P is. P is the proportion of people voting for Mr. Evans. Okay, extremely important that we get that statement in. That will be worth a mark. Do not lose out on that mark. What else can we get in? Well, all of this is based on this distribution, a binomial of 38, probability of success 0.49. From there I can get the expectation. Expectation is n times p, 38 times 0.49. Okay, and that comes out as 18.62. Significance level has been given at 5%. Since it's a two-tailed test, I'm going to divide that significance level by 2, and we're looking for 0.025. All right, that's about all the information we can get down to start with, and that's worth quite a few of our marks already. Let's go ahead and process this hypothesis test. Our test statistic was this 13, so I know I'm going to need to calculate a probability involving that 13. I want it to be more extreme than 13. I want it to be the number 13 and even further away from the mean than 13. So, since the mean was 18.62, I'm looking for everything less than or equal to 13. And this calculation we should be able to do on our calculators. The tables wouldn't be useful here. P of 0.49 does not appear in the tables, and N of 38 does not appear in the tables, and calculating all of the probabilities from 0 to 13 is going to take an unnecessarily long amount of time in the exam. This is definitely one for your calculators. If you're not sure how to use your calculator for this, look out for a playlist on how to use your calculator or how to get the most out of your calculator in the exam. So the probability that x is less than or equal to 13, we really just need to punch that in. And we're left with 0.0475. Okay, we're going to make a comparison now as to whether or not that is significant. Just going to set up a quick diagram for reference. Okay, this is not necessarily the distribution that we're working with, even though P is close to 50%, so it should be quite symmetrical. I just want to be able to visualize where the critical regions are. So, I only want a 2.5% chance that it ends up in either of these tails. And I found the probability that is less than or equal to 13 to be 0.0475. So actually, if I was to shade that in on the diagram, it's going to come a little bit further than the critical value did, which lets me know it's not significant. It's not small enough for me to go ahead and reject H0. So, what's my conclusions? Actually, there's not enough evidence to reject H0. So there's not enough evidence to reject H0, but that is only a mathematical conclusion. I need to give a conclusion in context, and what will the context be? There's not enough evidence that there has been a change in the proportion of voters for Mr. Evans. Okay, so there's not enough evidence that there has been a change in the level of support for Mr. Evans. If you notice, I did make use of the statement that was given in the question. So, level of support for Mr. Evans. I used that exact phrase to make sure that I got my marks. Too often I see people change the phrase just a little bit and lose out on marks. All right, so if you say there's been a change in the voters, you would lose marks. If you were to say there'd been a change in what people intended to do, you would lose marks. Really copy and paste that phrase from the question into your response.